If you have two businesses, should you have one LLC, two LLCs, or an LLC with a DBA? When deciding whether to have two separate LLCs or an LLC with a DBA, the key question is whether you need separate liability between the two entities. I'll explain. First off, remember a DBA is just a nickname or an alias for an entity like an LLC. A DBA is not a separate business. It's just a nickname for the business. So if you don't need to separate liability between the two entities, or between the two businesses, we'll call it, you can have an LLC with one name and a DBA for that same LLC with a different name. So that way, when customers see the different names, they don't get confused and they don't say, hey, why does my receipt have a different business name on it? It's like, no, we have a nickname, a DBA for this LLC, so people don't get confused about that. So an LLC with a separate DBA for a separate business is absolutely appropriate if you don't care about separating liability. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say one of the businesses gets sued. Because it's all in one LLC, both businesses are exposed to risk. And so if one business has bakery equipment and the other business has arts and craft equipment, both the equipment and the value of both businesses are exposed in that lawsuit. I've got some other videos where I talk about what you can do about that besides separating them into separate LLCs. One popular option is just get insurance to cover everything. So you would want a separate LLC if you want separate liability. So for example, if the bakery gets sued, the arts and craft equipment and inventory are not exposed because there are separate LLCs. In order to do that, you need to have separate bank accounts and you need to respect them as separate businesses. I have a separate video on piercing the veil, which talks about when one business can be liable for another and vice versa. That's called piercing the veil of limited liabilities between them, and a creditor or someone who sues you can pierce that and go after your other company if you don't do things right. So check out that video on piercing the veil to learn more about that topic. The other part of this question is there any tax benefit to having separate LLCs? The short answer is no, there is not. Because income and losses from these businesses will flow through to you, and you will pay the tax obligations once they flow through. The IRS calls this an ignored entity or a pass-through taxation, which basically just means everything from the business flows through to you. So there isn't a tax benefit in having two LLCs or an LLC and a DBA. From a tax standpoint, it's going to be neutral. I'm Aaron Hall. I'm an attorney for business owners and entrepreneurs. I do this educational channel to help you spot issues to discuss with your attorney, to help you identify ways to avoid problems. But keep in mind, it's an educational channel. This is not a replacement for using an attorney who understands the law in your state, in your jurisdiction, and can take the time to understand your particular goals and concerns and exceptions that might apply to you. I'd love for you to get the exclusive free resource that we make available to subscribers. It's a list of common legal problems and how to avoid them, and then videos, educational videos, talking about how to avoid those problems in your company and set your company up for success. You can get that at aaronhall.com/free. Enter your email address, and we will start sending you that information by email.